Okay, welcome to this episode of the Smart Leaders Sell podcast. I am Jessica Lorimer, sales coach, leadership expert, and I'm really excited to be back for another Monday episode. I'm going to be honest, I don't know whether it's just me, but I don't listen to my own podcast. I get really, really excited about making it, but I don't ever want to listen to it back. You know, when you listen back to things and you think, oh God, your voice sounds a bit weird. I always assume, unless I have a cold, which I currently do, again, I'm blaming Sam. He brought one home last weekend. I always assume I sound like Minnie Mouse on crack. So I don't really get into the habit of listening back to the podcast episodes on a Monday. But what I really do like doing is going in on a Monday afternoon and just checking. I go into Libsyn, which is where we host the podcast, and I go in and I check the stats. I'm like a total stat freak, and I'm just like, oh my God, how many people have listened to it already? So I get really, really excited about that. So if you are listening today and it is Monday, know that later on this afternoon, I'm going to be checking the stats. And although your name won't be on there, you will be a number, and you'll be a number that I very, very much appreciate. So I'm really excited about today's episode. Totally different from normal, when obviously I'm not excited about them at all. But today's episode has come about as a result of a question from one of our podcast listeners. I don't know what to call it really. Is it like poddies? Is that the term? I'm not really sure. I'm going to have to think about that. It's kind of like when you have your tribe. People in bands have groupies. I don't know whether I have poddies. I don't know whether that's a thing. Someone needs to email in and let me know. But anyway, this question came from somebody who's one of the listeners to the show, actually Mark, who appeared about 4 episodes ago. And he messaged me and said, I have a question that I would love you to cover on one of the Monday episodes. And I was like, yeah, do it. I'd love to cover some cool stuff on a Monday. So his question was around following up. And it was a great question actually, around how do you follow up with people when they have committed to something and then they just ghost you. And I was like, that is such a juicy topic, and had to record it immediately, obviously. So the thing is, it's a really interesting one for me. And I always go back to dating analogies. You know, I don't know whether anyone else here has been on Tinder or Plenty of Fish or Match.com, eHarmony, whatever floats your boat when it comes to the online dating scene. But I have. And I feel like, although some of the dates that I went on were absolutely terrible, top comedy value, hilarious, weird, just flat out crazy in some cases, I actually got off pretty lightly. You know, I was never somebody who sent messages to people and, got asked on dates and got stood up, and I didn't really get ghosted. But actually, I was, and this is really awful to admit, I was a really good ghoster. And we're talking sort of like, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. Obviously, I wouldn't do it now. That's because I already have a boyfriend. So I guess if I ghosted him, he wouldn't be too happy about that. But also, I think that there is a certain level of, maybe it's maturity, I can't really say age, but I think maturity that you get to when you're perfectly capable of saying, no, sorry, you're not for me. Or at least that's what I thought. And then I realized, being in the sales world, that actually ghosting is way more common than we think. And it happens in all areas of life. It's not just dating. And that really, really surprised me. That's what we're going to be covering off today. All about the art of the follow-up, how to deal with those irritating, frustrating, annoying people that just completely ghost on you, even if you've had an amazing discovery call or sales call with them, what to do about it and how to move forward. But secret sneak peek before we dive in, I just want to let you guys know that in 2 weeks' time, on February the 10th, my book is launching. Yay! I would be popping champagne corks, but I'm actually quite sick, so probably not going to do that. But February the 10th, Saturday, February the 10th, if you want to read a sales book with blueprints, scripts, lots of different exercises to help you pick the right platform, to help you navigate the sales world, it is going to be on Amazon. And if you want to grab a seat on the waitlist, if you want to be first to know when the book is coming out and see the behind the scenes of my book launch, how I run it, what I do, and get some sneaky market research in, feel free to go and sign up at the waitlist. That's jessicalorimer.com/book-waitlist. We like to keep it simple over here. Keeping it simple, keeping it real. So let's get on and talk about follow-ups. So the first thing I think we need to look at when we're talking about following up is, why are we actually having to do the follow-up in the first place? So this is it's a really interesting one for me, because when people come to your discovery calls or your sales calls, breakthrough assessments, whatever it is that you're calling them, ideally you want them to walk away from that call having made a decision. Now, in a perfect world, obviously, we want that decision to be that they buy from us, but ultimately we want them to walk away from that call being a hell yes or a hell no. And so it's really interesting to me when people ask me questions about sales, or, recently I've been running the latest round of cash creation, for example, and I've had people say, oh, I've got verbal commitments. And I'm quite blunt, as we all probably know by now. And one of my cash creators said this to me the other day and said, I've got 4 verbal commitments. And I was like, well, that doesn't mean shit, because ultimately, and it might just be me, it might just be my natural cynicism playing out, but ultimately a verbal commitment doesn't really mean anything on a sales call. It means that the person is still on the fence. And so in order to give themselves some breathing space and, to be able to go away and process things in their own mind, what they've said to you is what you want to hear. So, instead of saying, actually, Jess, I don't really think you've clarified this for me, or I'm not sure that you're the right coach for me, or actually, I'm not sure I'm the decision maker in this process. I've got to talk to my spouse or partner about where the finance is going to come from. The person has given you what you want to hear, ultimately, which is a yes. And then they've walked away and they've said, okay, cool, I'll go and get the money, or I'll sign the contract next week, or I'll make sure that I do it on my next payday, or, I'm going to get some vouchers for my birthday in undetermined month. I'll do it then. And so what happens is that on the call, when they say that, we feel good. And that is the response that they're looking for. Ultimately, when people are saying, or giving verbal commitments, and this only applies, by the way, to the people who are giving verbal commitments to get out of the call situation, not the people who give a verbal commitment and within 24 hours are fully paid up, contracted, and ready to go. But when those people are saying yes, what they're doing is trying to please you. Okay, so they're putting themselves in a situation where they're going, if I say no, or if I say I don't know, it could put me in a further position of stress, or it could put me in a position where the seller doesn't like me anymore. So to make that situation less stressful and to make it easier for me, what I'm going to do is say yes and tell them yes, but. Okay, so if you ever have a yes, but on a call, just have a little internal antenna go up and think, okay, is this the real scenario, or do I need to go back and do some extra reassurance? Is there anything else I need to do to help this person make the decision? Okay, so we've got to this point in the call. We've got the yes, but they go away. Now, what I always recommend, the easiest way to follow up with somebody, if they've gone away being a yes, but, or I have to, check the finances with my spouse, or I need to think about it overnight, the easiest way to follow up and guarantee a follow-up is to get the commitment for the follow-up call. And yes, it will be a call on that phone call, all right, on that conversation. So that's really important. And the reason it's really important is because when you organize a follow-up call and the person agrees to it, they typically are the people that you can trust. They're the people who are willing to put you in their diary again. They genuinely are in a space where they really are considering doing this. They really have in their head made the mental commitment. And now it is a case of doing the final checks with their finances or their partner. And that's fine. The people who are resistant, who say, oh no, I'll just email you, or, oh, can you just send me an email on that day instead? And they don't want to rearrange a follow-up call. Again, those are red flags. And what I'd advise doing in that situation is just saying, hey, look, I totally understand that you don't want to cram your diary with calls that aren't relevant to where you are right now. I just want to open the floor and give you a safe space to say, if this isn't the opportunity for you. And if you say that it's not the opportunity for you, I'm not going to give you the hard sell. That's totally okay. But ultimately, I don't want to put you in a position where I'm going to be chasing you for the next couple of weeks to find out what the decision is when you already know it now. Now, you might think, oh God, but what if that shuts the sale down? In all honesty, if somebody turns around to you after and says, do you know what? Because you've said that, I'm now not going to buy. They're not an ideal client and they were never going to buy anyway. The majority of people, if they really are serious about it, but they've got a huge workload on, or they've got lots of client delivery to do, perhaps they're traveling, will turn around and say, no, I'm 100%, sure that I want you to follow up with me. It's just that I have XYZ on right now. And I don't want to commit to a call when I've got some really urgent projects being delivered. But I can guarantee that if you email me on this day, I will respond straight away. Okay, so it's really important that when you're following up, you set it like a process, and the process for the follow-up starts not when you have to send out that first email saying, hey, really enjoyed our call last week, just checking in on where things are. It starts when you're on that initial call or when you're starting that initial conversation. So make sure that you're getting that commitment for a further call on the original discovery call, and make sure that you have that and it's in their calendar, it's in your diary, so that they're ready to go and that they're ready to discuss anything that they need to. Now, I usually call these 15-minute decision-making calls. And so I say to people, look, it's not going to be another 30-minute call because we've gone through everything today that we need, but it will be a 15-minute decision-making call to give you the opportunity to ask any questions that might have come up for you in between now and when we speak in 2 days' time. If you can, try and keep the limit to 48 hours for when you next speak to them. And the reason being is that the longer that people go away, the longer they have in their own head to talk themselves out of it. So we typically get a lot of buyer's remorse, and we see people who walk away and they'll convince themselves that they can't do the work, or, that things have changed and it's become a little bit more difficult for them. So get those commitments on the call, get it in the diary, and then it's going to be much more difficult for the prospect to just randomly cancel. And it's going to give you those indicators of whether or not they really are intending to go through with buying from you or not. All right. Now, ways of following up. So this is really interesting. And I don't know whether this is my background in corporate sales. Perhaps it's a legacy from my corporate days. But when people talk about following up, I have a 3-part system for doing it. I'm really, really anal about it. And it's just one of those things that I found works over time. So what I'll always do is use a platform that I can control. So I want to be able to know if that person received the message. I want to know if the person has read the message. And I want to know that it's going to be a guaranteed delivery, basically. So for that reason, if you use email, please make sure you put a read receipt on it. If you're using an automated email responder, that's absolutely fine. You can put people in separate lists and things using ActiveCampaign or MailChimp, whatever it is that you're using. Or you can, if you use Facebook Private Messenger, you can use that too. And obviously you can tell on there if somebody has received a message and if they've read it. So the first thing we need to do, obviously, is make sure that those systems are go. Because if you don't have things like a read receipt or a tracking or a way of tracking whether or not it was received, delivered, and read, it's going to make it really uncomfortable for you, because generally 24 to 48 hours after you sent the first follow-up message, you're already going to be sat on your hands thinking, oh God, they haven't replied yet. What's going on? Did they get it? And that's the first thing in your head. Now, again, having been a teenager and having used online dating apps, I can tell you that it takes me roughly, 10 hours to get antsy. I'm a very impatient person, and it's because I'm a quick decision maker naturally. So I assume that if somebody is not making a quick decision, or if they haven't come back to me when they said they would, then they're not going to. Okay, so if you're ever waiting on an email from me, you'll only ever be waiting 24 hours. That's always the good thing. I do respond quickly. But equally, if you are ever on a discovery call with me and you walk away, expect to be followed up with just like this. So we have to have the tracking on. We have to make sure that we're able to track the deliverability and whether or not they've read it. The first email that needs to go out to somebody when you're following up is super casual, because obviously this is usually the email that has been sent in between your original discovery call and your second one. So it's just a casual, hey, first name, just checking that we're still good to speak on Thursday at 1:00. Really looking forward to having a chat about insert your goals here. I'll speak to you then, Jess. Okay, so it's really casual, really assumptive, and it reminds them that you are genuinely interested by highlighting their goals and the things that they want to achieve. It reminds them that you're genuinely interested, you genuinely care about what is going on in their business, and you are interested in helping them. Now, if they don't respond to that, but they get on the call, all well and good. You now have the opportunity to close them on that call and be on your merry way. However, if you've run the process differently and you've run the original discovery call and you haven't booked in a follow-up call, you need to run the 3-step process, okay? And the 3-step process starts again with a really casual email. So on the call, hopefully you will have discussed with them a day to follow up via email, or you'll have let them know, look, I'll be, in your inbox within the next 48 hours, just checking in to see if you've had any thoughts or if there's anything else that you need from me. So that email, that first email that you send out, does need to be casual. And I would again go something like, hey, first name, just checking in after our call on insert date. I really enjoyed chatting to you about insert their goals. And I really believe that I can help you overcome insert their obstacles. Please let me know if you have any questions. As a quick reminder, here's the payment link for the program if you are ready to start. And if you have any questions that you want to run by me personally, here's the link to book a 15-minute decision-making call with me. Thanks, Jess. Okay, so that's the first one. It's casual. It reminds them that you care. It gives them the payment link if they want to purchase straight away, or it sends them to the 15-minute decision-making call. So it's not, there's no real pressure here. It's just a casual reminder, and it makes them feel heard, valued, and cared for. If they don't respond to that, and again, you have to give these things 48 hours. Usually I say 24 hours for most sales activities. Give it 24 hours, and if nothing has happened, tweak or change it. With these, people are busy, and it's not always easy to craft a message that says, actually, I don't want to buy from you. Thanks. Despite how simple I've made it sound there. But some people do genuinely want to take the time to write a nice message. Some people have lives, they've got other things going on. So if you are following up with people, give them 48 hours so that they do have the time to pick up the email or the message, read it, and respond at a convenient time for them. Okay? Now, if they don't respond within 48 hours, however tempting it may be, just send them an email that says, you're really rude. I spent all this time with you and you can't even be bothered to come back to me. Make sure that you keep your second email super professional. Now, obviously, it's not going to be as casual as the first email because they've actually gone outside of our boundaries. They have stepped outside the line and they haven't responded when they said that they would. So the second email needs to be professional, but a little bit cool. We're taking a little bit of a step back from the process and we're becoming a little more detached. Ultimately, if they don't respond to email 2, we are pretty sure that they're going to be a no. Okay, so email 2, again, really, really simple. Hey, first name, I'm not, you could even say actually, hey, first name, I saw that you received my email last week. I know that life gets busy, but I'd really love it if you could let me know whether or not you'd like to join the program and achieve insert your goals, or whether you'd like a 15-minute decision-making call booked in this week. Please let me know by, and then give them a time or a day, 48 hours in advance. Thanks, Jess. Okay, again, it's simple, it's nice, it's civil, it's polite, but it reminds them that they are on your radar. Okay, so it's not like you've just left them in the lurch and that you're awkwardly following up and you're kind of like, hey, how are you? How's life? Because that is weird and stalkerish. But you are reminding them, what was it you talked about? Why was it you thought it would be a good fit? And, if they have any questions, here's how they can get in touch with you to ask them. Now, if within 48 hours, they don't come back to you, in my mind, they've blown it. Okay, if you've had, let's say, 6 days to respond to an email or to let somebody know whether or not you're going to be a yes or whether or not you have questions, then unfortunately, you're out of my sales process. And so what I recommend in that situation is just checking in with a super short email and saying, hey, first name, I'm sorry that you weren't able to let me know whether or not you had questions. Unfortunately, this time, I don't think that the program would be the right fit for you, as I like to work with clients who are able to be honest and transparent throughout the process. For me, it's really important to coach clients who are coachable and who are able to communicate with me effectively. And I don't think you are available for that at this time. Best wishes for the future, Jess. Again, it sounds harsh, okay, and it sounds really blunt, but ultimately, if we ghost on them, we allow this behavior to continue. Now, if we send them an email and we say, hey, you overstepped the boundary, and actually now I'm removing you from this process, it does two things. One, it teaches them that in the future, actually, it's just common courtesy to send somebody an email and let them know. And that two, actually, it can cost you a potential relationship, network, colleague, peer relationship moving forward. So for me, I work with some amazing people. My clients are phenomenal. And I was saying to one of them the other day that I only recommend my clients because either I've worked with them myself, I've gone on to hire them myself, or I've seen the quality of their work for other people. The other great thing about being able to recommend my clients is that actually I know the best things about them and I know the things that niggle me. The one thing that I know about all of my clients is that they all communicate transparently. They're all very honest people. They all have the same values that I do. And so if somebody indicates or if somebody shows me through their actions that they don't have the same values as me, they're not, a big fan of honesty, integrity, fun, giving value, then ultimately they're not going to be the right client fit for me. And so it's at that point that I need to shut that relationship down and just let them know. No, unfortunately, you're not the right fit for the program. Sometimes it's fine, okay? Sometimes they never ever come back to you and it's not ever a problem. Sometimes though, people will get defensive, okay? So if you do send out an email where you set a boundary and where you remove an opportunity for somebody to work with you, please be aware that people can, despite the fact they haven't been in contact with you or they haven't let you know, they can be upset and they can get very defensive about it. And, they can send emails back trying to be upset with you and trying to put the blame at your door. Now, just know that in all honesty, this is their issue and it's them not wanting to take personal responsibility for their actions. It's absolutely nothing to do with you. And ultimately, what I'm always saying to my clients is that your boundaries are your boundaries. They're not there to upset people. They're there to ensure that you continue to have successful sales process and that you continue to enjoy your business and that you continue to have a business that you can run around the life that you want. When someone breaks those boundaries, how they react to the way that they feel as a result of their own actions is not your problem, okay? We're all big people, but we're all grown-ups, right? We know the score. Actions have consequences. So if you set a boundary, you cannot feel bad and you cannot feel responsible for how the person reacts to it. As long as you are polite, civil, and explanatory, how they take it is going to be their problem. Okay? So we've got the 3 emails. They've all gone out. And this kind of poses the next question. And one of my other clients was talking about this recently. We were talking about people ghosting in one of the group programs that I run. And she was saying, it's really funny to me because I'll have people that they'll come on the discovery call. They're a hell yes. They're really excited. And then they just ghost me and they ignore all of my emails. But it's weird because they'll still be in my community and they'll still watch my Facebook lives. They'll like all my photos. They will, appear and pop up and tell people that I'm great, but they just won't contact me. Now, in that situation, it's not really ghosting, okay, is the first thing that I want to say. It's not really ghosting if somebody is still following you around the internet. You can't think that they've ghosted you. However, it does indicate that that person isn't a great communicator and that they're not really able to explain to you what their problem is. Now, that could be a few reasons. It could be that they're embarrassed, if it's around finances, they've committed themselves to something and they've overcommitted. Sometimes it can be embarrassing for somebody to say, actually, I said yes on the call and I really want to work with you, but my finances just don't allow that right now. And I thought they did, but I made a mistake. I'm really sorry. That can be embarrassing for people. It can make them feel uncomfortable. Equally, they can be, as we were discussing earlier, they can be people pleasers. And so if they've said yes on the call to please you, to make you happy, and then they've realized that actually they don't want to go through with this, they still want you to know that they like you. And that's why they're doing the whole, I'm going to like all of your photos, I'm going to be present on your Facebook Lives, your video recordings, I'm going to tell people how great you are, so that you know it's nothing personal. Okay? Now, it can be a bit of a funny one, and it can be really frustrating. Because ultimately, if somebody has been avoiding your messages, but you can see that they're still pretty active, it can be really, really frustrating to have to watch them go around and do different things and speak to different people and seemingly ignore you, especially when you actually haven't done anything wrong. My biggest piece of advice, in all honesty, is to communicate with them one last time. If they have been present on social media, if they have been following you around and liking your stuff, but not actually responding to you, I would reach out to them one last time and say, hey, first name, I've seen you've been really active in the community. I know that we caught up on our sales call last week and that you were initially a yes. I haven't heard anything from you since, so I'm assuming that now you are a no. Just friendly advice for future. I'd really love it for anyone else that you go onto a sales call with, that you communicate with them openly so that they don't have the same experience that I did. Best wishes, insert your name. Now, again, we're not saying these things to make people feel bad. And this is the key thing here. When I say to people, hey, I'd prefer that you didn't treat me like that, or hey, it was great to chat with you on the sales call, but then you ghosted me, and I'd rather you didn't do that to other people. It's not something that's coming from a place of malice. Okay, you're not doing it from a place of frustration. You're letting that person know that they crossed a line with you. Now, if you've been in this situation where the person has potentially requested a few discovery calls from you, perhaps they've had 2 or 3 and every single time they've gotten the call and they've been a yes and then they've been a no, you need to implement a policy for that, and decide what your own boundaries are around sales calls and around how many times people can cancel or take a call and be a yeah and then a no. And mess you around. Personally, mine is 2 strikes and you're out. So you can book a sales call, and if you need to cancel, and this is the thing, the caveat with me, and there always is a caveat, is that if you need to cancel and you let me know because there was, there's an emergency. I mean, if there is an emergency, I'm assuming you wouldn't let me know until afterwards, but if something happened and afterwards you let me know, that's fine. No problem. That doesn't count as a strike. If you let me know before the call and say, actually, Jess, you know what? I found another coach. I'll go, oh, I'm really pleased. And thank you ever so much for letting me know. Because again, it helps me manage my diary. It means that space is there for somebody else. So again, that doesn't count as a strike. Okay. That, for me, it means that person was honest and they communicated with me. And in all honesty, they sound like a great person that I want to work with in the future. They've committed to a coach. They didn't ghost on one that they were potentially going to have a chat with. Brilliant. My kind of person. However, if somebody has come to a call with me twice, they've booked a discovery call once and they've walked away and they've said no, or they've, been on the fence, I'm not sure, or they've messed me around, they've been late to the call and they didn't let me know they were going to be late, or things like that, you get 2 strikes. And then that's it. And I will send an email to that person and to my assistant that says, hey, first name, I'm really sorry that we weren't able to catch up this week. Unfortunately, I have a 2-strike policy when it comes to running discovery calls. That means that when you missed both of your calls this week, or when you made the decision to say yes and then back out and then come back on another call and do the same thing, that unfortunately you breached that 2-strike policy. So I will not be able to offer you any free discovery calls in the future. They will come at a cost of insert the cost. I wish you all the very best, Jess. Now, I really do wish these people the best, but ultimately, when people are messing you around in your calendar, they're taking up time that somebody else could have had, and that isn't fair. So you do have to implement a policy that stops people messing around with your time and ultimately with your cash flow, because you could be talking to somebody else, you could be doing client delivery work, you could be, doing things in your own business that are designed to be money-making activities. So they're not just taking a spot, it's not just irritating, it actually does affect your cash flow. So make sure that you do have a boundary set and that you are ready to send out that email and just let them know. It would have been great to work with you. Unfortunately, you've maxed out your free discovery calls with me. And next time, if you decide that you want to apply, it'll be a cost of, and you could say anything. You can say $100, you can say, $50, it doesn't matter. And if you decide that you want to go ahead and work with me on that next call, then the amount from your discovery call would be taken off of the program that you go on to purchase. Okay, so you can be fair about it. It's just about making people aware that they have to make a commitment to being in your diary, and that actually that commitment stands regardless of, what happens. Because sometimes when people think free, they assume that it means nothing or that it's not going to give them value. And ultimately, that's not how I run my discovery calls. People walk away from them, they have the breakthrough, they've got an action plan to move forward. And so that time is really valuable. And so it is really important to me that those spots, because they are so limited, only go to people who really are going to use them and implement what they've learned on that call. So those are the strategies that I tend to put in place for following up with people. And I think the key things that you want to look at when you are following up is, it's just the basics, okay? It's common courtesy. So when we're following up, we need to try and get a verbal commitment or a date in the diary for the next follow-up call, or let them know when you'll be emailing them or when you want to hear from them via email with a decision. If you don't hear from them, that's when you go into the 3-step email process and you can send out those emails. You also need to set boundaries around how many times you're willing for somebody to come to a free discovery call or a free breakthrough assessment, and the amount of times that they are allowed to cancel without notice or do things that would breach your boundaries and effectively mean that you would forfeit any future sessions from that person. And then the final thing is that if you do think you've been ghosted, if you do think that somebody has perhaps been avoiding you online and perhaps they're not following you around the internet, perhaps they're not liking your pictures or talking to you, perhaps they've deleted you from Facebook and unsubscribed from your email list, the key thing in that situation is to remember that whatever has triggered them is nothing to do with you. Okay, if you've done your job correctly on the discovery call and they have just completely ghosted you, it's very, very likely that something triggered them, and whatever that was, it wasn't with any kind of malice on your part. And so ultimately, they have shown you the kind of person that they are through their actions. Okay, and that's one of those things that happens. And one of my good biz besties, Heather Gray, she always says, when somebody shows you who they are, believe them. And I think it's a Maya Angelou quote originally, but I always credit it to Heather. How bad is that? I always accidentally credit it to Heather because she's amazing. But it's very, very true. When people show you who they are, you have to believe them. So it is your job to look at it objectively, no matter how much it might hurt. These are people who ultimately are probably in your community, who you have probably heard of regularly, and have seen regularly interacting with you. If they do ghost you, it can be hurtful. But please remember that when somebody shows you who they are, it's your job to believe them. It's not your job to pander to them or to try and change your behavior to make them feel better. It's your job to go through a clear follow-up process, let them know where you stand and let them know where they stand, and move on and find the right client for you. So hopefully this has been helpful. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know if you send out follow-up emails, and if you do, are they as blunt as mine, or do you make them sound nicer? Or have you been chasing clients? Have you felt like every single client that comes on a discovery call, you have to chase down consistently and you have to do it nicely until eventually you just kind of end up ghosting them? I'd love to hear about it. I will see you on Friday. I have a really, really special guest for the Friday episode, and it's a really, really juicy one. So I will see you then. If you have enjoyed today's episode, please make sure that you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the future ones. And you can always leave us a review on iTunes, Stitcher, Podbean, Podable, or any of the other ways that you are listening to the show. I will see you in the next episode.